Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live, and I'm Cyril Stober. The push for a standalone urban goal, SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities, by subnational multilateral groups, underscores the crucial role to be played by subnational governments in the successful implementation of a majority of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the continued clamor for the decentralization of development is mounting existing pressure on subnational governments to deliver on their mandate through boosting growth and development at the grassroots. But what has the debate translated to? Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live will explore national development and responsibilities at subnational levels. But before we go into the conversation, let's get to see this report put together by correspondent Ekene Ndului.
In recent times, governmental functions have greatly expanded with the emergence of government as an active force in guiding social and economic development. At the center of these huge responsibilities are the central government and the subnationals tasked with the responsibility of ensuring security of lives and property, as well as other basic needs. Current time in Nigeria has seen the government at the center being put to test, especially with rising cost of foodstuffs amid increase in violent crimes. President Bola Tinubu's administration is not shying away from these challenges and has deployed several resources and strategies to fight the elephant in the room. The president has ordered the Federal Ministry of Agriculture to release 42,000 metric tons of grains from the reserves to crush soaring food prices.
The whole idea of this is to crush the cost of these food items. And these are measures that will happen immediately.
It would be recalled that last year, federal government approved the sum of 5 billion naira for each state and the Federal Capital Territory, FCT, to enable them procure food items for distribution to the poor in their respective states. In addition to the fund, federal government also released 5 trucks of rice to 36 states of the Federation, aside other economic and social interventions. Nigerian workers were not left out of the deal. While a new national minimum wage is being negotiated, a monthly wage award of 35,000 naira was announced pending when a new national minimum wage comes into effect. The security challenges in the country is another area of concern, and to tackle rising cases of kidnapping and banditry, the administration established a special intervention squad with operations in 10 pilot states based on assessments of violent crimes. In the area of infrastructure, President Tinubu established the Infrastructure Support Fund for the 36 states of the Federation to enable states intervene and invest in critical areas of transportation, roads, agriculture, health, and education. Apparently, a lot still needs to be done, as there are limits to what can be achieved without commensurate contributions by government at the subnational levels. For instance, it is expected that the various states also match federal government's efforts in providing interventions in the various areas of interest. However, some states are known to come short of some of the economic policies of the federal government, leading to disaffection among its citizens. It is also on record that some states are yet to implement the 30,000 naira minimum wage since it was signed into law in 2019. As the federal government is strategizing to take Nigeria out of the woods, expectations are that the states complement these efforts for better results.
All right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let me introduce our guest. We'd like to welcome to this program Honorable Farouk Aliyu Adamu. He's a businessman and a former minority leader in the House of Representatives. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you. Good evening.
Let me also welcome to this program Elder Simon Achuba, as a former Deputy Governor of Kogi State. He was also at one time Deputy Speaker of the Kogi State House of Assembly. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're also joined tonight by Professor Ken Ife, Development Economist. Prof, good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
And joining us from our Lagos Network Center is Dr. Tunji Abayomi, constitutional lawyer. Dr. Abayomi, good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you. All right, and as you're aware, the program at some point gets interactive, and when we get to that point, we'll remind you of the process and the procedure. But let's go straight into the issues at stake as we begin to examine national development and the responsibilities of state governments. But first, let's start with you, Honorable Farouk Aliyu Adamu. Since democracy took roots in Nigeria, where would you say we are now in terms of the contribution of the states to national development?
Good evening, Nigeria. Sadly, I think it's not much to be desired, honestly. I mean, when you compare the contribution of the state towards the national development, you find out that the state governments across board try to leech on the federal government. Sometimes you wonder whether there is just one government in this country, which means the federal government, because everybody comes crying to federal government to assist and so on. You find out in some states, just like in your report, I know one particular state that are still paying 18,000 naira as minimum wage. And from last year, from the time when subsidy was removed to date, the states have gotten about 45% increment in their revenues and so on. But whether on ground you could see these things, no, you don't. And probably everybody has to, take the blame. But the governors have to take responsibility for, what happens in the states. When you talk about like the security now, they always speak about the federal government is doing nothing, that they are left on their own and so on and so forth. But all the same, if the states could like devolve, the monies they get, they could use it appropriately, leadership by example, whereby state governors start from, even from the convoy of a governor, or appointments of, you see a governor appointing an assistant in every local government to do nothing, and so on. So these kind of things, don't say good of us as a country, as a people. So I think the states need to wake up to their responsibilities, to know that, look, when we say Nigeria, we do not mean just federal government. The states also have duty to the people. Recently, the federal government spoke about agriculture now. All the states are coming to federal level. Give us money to do agriculture in our states. As if they don't have Ministry of Agriculture or allocations for agriculture and so on. So if we need to, see development in this country, the states need to come forward. Recently, remember the Supreme Court gave judgment when the former president did the Naira change denomination. The Supreme Court gave a judgment that it was unconstitutional for the federal government to do what they did with the states, which means the states are an integral part of this country. The states also have a duty to the citizens to ensure that they are carried along, they spend the money, and the people see that monies are being spent. But if anything happens now, the governors will say federal government, federal government. So I think we also have to start holding governors accountable.
All right, thank you so much. Let's go over to Elder Simon Achuba, who would give us his opening comments on the issues at stake. Where is the position of the subnationals, the states, in terms of development? How well have they done since the return to democracy?
Well, thank you, and good evening, Nigerians. Well, so far, we started well in 1999 under the leadership of President Olusegun Obasanjo. Then governors' conduct and behavior were not the way it is now. And under the Obasanjo regime, he was very, very firm. And he never allowed governors to abuse the Constitution and get away with it. Every governor that misbehaved, he went after them to make sure that those conducts are not allowed. Gradually, along the line, the governors overwhelmed the presidents that comes in and threaten them, well, if you don't cooperate with us, you will not come back. So those were the political things that started coming in and aggravated state governors' conduct negatively. As a result, some governors misbehave and they get away with it. Take, for instance, a local government election is conducted. The local governments are supposed to do 3 years. Maybe in between, another governor, maybe from another party or in the same party comes in. They say the local government are dissolved just by announcement. And the local government chairmen and councillors, they will go to court and they will be in court for years on end, even after the tenure of that governor. But if there is a constitutional provision and a president who will not want the Constitution to be abused, look, a president called to a governor to say, look, what you are doing cannot be tolerated under my watch, under this government, speaks a lot. Secondly, as president continues to come on, they are not speaking to issues. A state governor will abuse the Constitution, do an unspeakable thing that has never been done before, and nobody, queries him, says anything about what he has done, and he gets away with it. Even when he is taken to the court, he finds his way around it and gets out of it. And nothing happens. Because, to some extent, some judgment comes and says he has immunity. And this is where we need, as a nation, to reason together. Whether this immunity should cover all aspects of the life of the governor, or some aspect of the life of the governor. In this case, there is a need, I believe, to remove the immunity partially. Like when a governor abuses the Constitution, which he has taken an oath to defend, such governor should be called to it. And there should be an impeachment process other than the process as is provided for in the Constitution currently. That when a governor abuses the Constitution, the Attorney General of the Federation can present such abuse before the National Assembly. Those are the ways. If we have alternative to the process at the state, because most of the states now have been captured, the State Assembly has become a department of the State House, of government houses. They are just a department. So to query a governor, to frown at the errors of the governor is no longer possible. And these governors, most of them, especially those who never occupied any political position before they were elected governors. You know, one thing about life and governance that we don't talk about is the power of praise, which in the political circle, people will refer to it as psychopathy. These people come to power, they don't know that there are praise singers on the corridor of power. They sing their praise to the extent that their head swells, and some of them see themselves as mini gods, where their words becomes law itself. And so a lot is going on which needs to be, you know, adjusted. We need to make a change. Right. We really need to make a change.
All right, thank you so much. Professor Kenife, well, yes, a number of things are under the exclusive list, but there are others on the concurrent list. But it's become fashionable over the years, particularly during this democratic period from when Nigeria returned to democracy, to find that just about every facet of development is placed on the shoulders of the federal government. And in some cases, states have been accused of shirking their responsibilities, not taking on matters that are not on the exclusive list, and referring just about everything to the federal level and waiting for such to come from the center. How would you assess this over the years?
You know, federal government is such a an object that everybody loves to hate. And it's so convenient for governors to blame it, you know, to pile the blame on federal government. If you look at economic development and social development, even environment, they're all on the concurrent legislative list. And that means that federal government is an actor, state government is an actor, local government is an actor, and private sector is an actor. If you look at the medium-term development plan, national development plan, 2021 to 2025, the total budget, the expected money to be is 350 trillion naira. All levels of government, federal, state, and local government are to contribute 50 trillion, which is just, you can actually add it up from whatever you find in their budgets on capital, that you add them up, that's what it comes to. They expect private sector to find 298 trillion, almost 300. So you can see the whole government looking at punching at 15%, and they want private sector to do it. But where is the structure that enables all levels of government to leverage the contribution of the private sector? Now let's take them one by one. There is an area of that's natural mineral resources. Now mineral resources, much of it can be found under the ground, apart from the aerospace and all this spectrum management and all of that. And that could be crude oil, that could be a solid mineral, but they're all held by federal government, anything under the ground. And then the state is anything above the ground. And that's where you come over to natural resources, which is agriculture and water resources. By the way, federal government should exit dams, because we have over 300 dams, and I don't know how many of them are yielding anything for us, not even aquaculture or even irrigation. So they should exit dams, because you've done the big strategic dams, over 300. And then you have this, what do you call the big? Yeah. Okay. Now, so that's just by the by. But so where you find that the leverage of the private sector could come, then you find these instruments very lacking in terms of willingness. You know, you call it political will. I'm aware of several PPPs that have tried, which is the trending thing, that hit the rock just because of the demand that are placed on private sector that want to do their best. Okay. Now you come to another area, which is the social side. The key areas of social side is human capital development. Now that's hospital, that is health, that's education, and that is employment. Japan is the second biggest economy in the world, just before China. Now China is the second biggest. Japan is now number 3. But Japan didn't grow to that status from mineral resources or natural resources. Is human capacity, investment in human capacity, electronics, cars, and all of that. It's just that it is where they excelled, and that's how they became the 3rd big. And in fact, if you look at the 10 biggest economies in the world, none of them is actually based on oil and gas and all that. It is industrialization, by the way, investment in infrastructure. We have only 30% stock of infrastructure in Nigeria. South Africa has 80%. So you can see why sometimes I have sympathy for various governments that invest in infrastructure. My only challenge with those investments is that they borrow the money not for exactly for the purpose for which it is intended. And the law that requires you to do what is right is Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. And unfortunately, that anything borrowing is on the exclusive legislative list. So you have to understand that some governors that may have brilliant ideas, if they don't have IGR, like Lagos has, or even Port Harcourt or something, Rivers or something, if they don't have enough IGR, they can live with their dreams. Federal government can dream for 43 years for infrastructure projects 2043. They can have their 2050 agenda. They will have our 20. States can only do like one year budget, 1 month. They collect money in. You can't plan long term with short term revenue. But for you to access foreign resources and borrow from outside or whatever, you need to join the FRA. You have to adopt and domesticate FRA 2007 in your state. And then you have to set up the institutional framework, which is the FRC, to actually govern it. When it was set up in 2007, it was left voluntary. And 90% of all the countries in the world that have actually adopted that fiscal law made it mandatory within a year. Now, only 25 states have adopted this. And of the 25 states that adopted it, not all of them have actually built this institutional framework for delivering. So when you want to borrow money, go and look at the shopping list. Has your local assembly approved? What is your FAQ? Let's see what headway you have in terms of headroom. So all of those, it constrains the people that what they want to achieve economically. So you have to have enough IGR and be more creative in your account, because you can't go and borrow money. All the governors that go and have bank, bank advances or bank overdraft are illegal. Anything borrowing has to be approved by federal government. It doesn't have to be external borrowing. Anything borrowing, because when you come, the law says you can only borrow for capital expenditure or human resource development. And we know that to be health, education, and employment. And then it says you can only have that based on a cost-benefit analysis. We haven't been doing that. We've been borrowing with, we promissory notes. We will promise to pay you over 5 years, and then we'll just spend and spend and spend, and then you run into others. So there are constraints. But there are also opportunities. There are states that have managed to wriggle out and have a clear development pathway, generating a lot of revenue. We know that for Lagos, for example. And then you go and see some developments in Akwa Ibom, gone into airline, they're doing business, build nice stadium, doing roads. You go to Abakaliki, you saw when they used concrete, you build their own. So there are some green shoots. It's not all bad news for all the states. But the local governments are decimated completely. You can't see the light for the local governments. They're all stampeded by state governments. And I think we need to look into the constitutional position of local, how to enforce their 20% money that they get. And they should do a lot more for that. Apart from basic education, which is in their domain, they can do a lot more, especially in the area of agriculture.
Speaking of which, it's the right time to bring in Dr. Tunji Abayomi, who is with us from our Lagos Network Center. Well, Dr. Abayomi, you heard Professor Kenife's last comments about what should be done, especially as it relates to constitutional provisions. But let's hear you, the topic of the day, and see how you bring in this aspect of it.
The nation is actually facing tremendous challenges. And in my view, our nation needs to have a very serious conversation about its future. The poor performance of the governments of the several states typifies the problems our nation faces. If today you go around the states and you do an assessment, talking to the people, if we are lucky, we'll find maybe 3 states, if not less, that will be rated as performing by the peoples of Nigeria. The question is, why is performance so low in our country? The same perception of the people of the federal government with regard to the several states, the perception is even considerably worse. In my view, Professor, as well as one of the speakers who said things have to change, typifies the challenge that the nation faces. I will call it the somber challenge. We cannot have a federation, in my view, where 52% of the wealth of the nation goes to only one government. And that is the federal government, when the remaining 37 really, if we include Federal Capital Territory, share 26%, and then the local government manage 22. Even if we combine the 22 and the 26, we still have only 48. Something needs to be done, and done fast. Because I'm 74 now, and I have been active in the struggle for better Nigeria for the last 40 years. I have gone to detention, jail 3 times, one for 1 year, the 3rd one in just prison. And I am a little bit concerned, worried about this, our nation. Because if we look at the situation of the nation since independence, since 1999, democracy, it looks like things are getting worse and worse and worse. One of the speakers spoke about that the government was somewhat better under Obasanjo, and the governors behaved properly. But things have deteriorated to the point that everybody in this country today is worried. If we don't have any concern, the simple concern about the tragedy of the nation, a nation that produces petroleum, is facing one of the most difficult challenges with relating to petroleum. And you go, a nation that has such vast land, scarcely able to feed its citizens. And you can go on and on and on. I think the challenge of the nation is to look deeply into its foundation of its government. I do not think the structure of government as we have it now will gain advantage for the people of Nigeria. As at today, if we must face this nation truthfully, it is very clear that we have a situation where maybe 4% of the nation have so much, too much as a matter of fact, and about 96% live in penury. If we have a government where leaders of government, like the Accountant General of the nation, or like a minister like Desiani, or like the man pension, can take billions where leadership is not regulated or controlled, then we need to have a serious and deep conversation about our nation. So, the states are performing very poorly, but they will tell you that to whom much is given, much is expected. But since so little is given to them, little should be expected. As to the federal government to whom much is given, well, that is left for the judgment of history. But in my view, our nation, this Nigerian nation, has a great possibility to which the whole world of black people look at, needs to have a deep conversation about its foundation, the structure of government. Why are things not working continually in our nation?
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Tunji Abayomi. Well, in addition to the conversation in the studio, we also have a number of reports that we'll be bringing to you. Let's get to see this one from Maiduguri.
Successive administrations in Borno State in the last 15 years have continued to accord utmost priority to peace and security as a veritable tool to achieving development. This critical role of government as achieved in Borno State has paved the way for relocation of IDPs to their ancestral communities, and the education sector is being transformed, with stringent monitoring mechanisms in place to properly reposition the sector after years of setback due to insurgency.
I want to assure you that I will continue from where he stopped, and where possible I will also do more. And we pray that anybody that will take over from my humble self will do better than all of us.
Further enable returning communities pick up their livelihoods. The state government has collaborated with the federal government and National Agricultural and Land Development Authority on rural housing scheme and empowerment program, as well as rainy and dry season farming to help grow the economy and that of the nation at large. In an effort to ensure statewide health care coverage, Borno State government has begun free treatment for vesicovaginal fistula patients, in addition to free maternal drugs, construction and renovation of health facilities, as well as midnight inspection of hospitals and clinics across the state by the governor. Borno State government has been complementing efforts of the federal government in the provision of palliatives to cushion the hardship being experienced by people, as recently Governor Babagana Umar Zulum has designated 2 filling stations in Damasak to be selling fuel to farmers at a subsidized price, as well as free transportation for farmers to and from their farmlands, while metro buses and electric taxis were procured for the generality of the populace to ease transportation challenges. These onerous responsibilities by the state government, stakeholders say, will in no small measure continue to impact positively on the lives of the citizenry.
Most communities have school now within their constituencies, where you can see from trackable distance people have the basis to education. It means education were brought down to the level and then to the doorstep of the masses.
He's one person that carries his people alone. He's one person that sees that he wants to take his people out of the quagmire they found themselves in.
In Maiduguri, Maimuna Garba.
Right, from Maiduguri, we go over to Birnin Kebbi for this next report.
Three traits of government share the authority and responsibility for the development of the state and its people. While the federal government approaches it from the broader and holistic level, the sub-government made up of the state and local governments approach it from a territorial perspective. This includes provision, regulating, and funding of key sectors of the economy, security research, and development activities. In Kebbi State, the relationship between the state and local government is evident in the level of development achieved so far in the area of agriculture and infrastructural development.
We intend to provide our farmers with solar-powered pumps. We intend to provide our farmers with CNG-powered pumps. And for those our farmers that are using the old PMS, the state government has a plan to convert their old pumps to CNG-powered pumps.
The relationship has been very, very cordial. We always partner to make sure that the road infrastructure in the state, that is the end users, the motorists, get the best out of the road infrastructure available.
This, among other achievements, has rubbed up on national development.
Each one of them at its own tier appreciates better or understands better the kind of challenge they are facing and the resources they require to solve this problem. Unfortunately, we are more dependent on the central government, on the central revenue that is being generated.
Malam Odu Idris was in public service for 35 years before his retirement as head of service.
Majority of potential tertiary students have access to education more than it used to be. But then the proliferation of education or universities in Nigeria has also its implication, as clearly demonstrated by massive fall in the standard of education across the board.
Despite the indifferences and few shortcomings, there is no doubt that patriotism and loyalty is a synergy that must come to play in order to achieve the national development of Nigeria. In Burunkebi, Jafari Yusobilo.
All right, those two reports there, but back in the studio, I'd like us to examine a number of those areas talked about: agriculture, education, health, and security. Let's look at agriculture, for instance, and this against the background of current realities where there are threats of food shortages, high cost of high prices, food being almost priced out of the reach of average families. And yet, in agriculture, both federal and states are key players. But we see a situation where just about everything except for some few sub-nationals is often left to the center.
Yeah, well, sadly, yes. But you see, I have to digress a little what Dr. Abayomi said and what the prof here said before I come to this. This is a broad topic. When we speak about Nigeria now, I think all of us are to blame, everybody, whether the sub-regional government, the national government, and so on. We, the people of this country, need to have a conversation that, look, if we love our country, there are certain things that we need to take as a people. One, leadership by example from like President Ashwaju. Tomorrow, for him to come out and say, from today, I will always be in Adire. That's made in Nigeria product. The furniture, what we eat, whatever. So we have to start from that level where the leadership will lead by example. Then the government can come and say, look, even if you have money, you cannot use your money to go and import wigs that you will use on your hair, or to import conflicts into this country, or to bring anything like this thing we're wearing now. Probably there should be a conversation that, look, okay, from today, everybody, whatever you have imported, keep it. From today, the government shall not allow imported goods into this country. So if we, as a people of this country, agree to that, leadership by example, we hold our leaders accountable, because the constitution of this country speaks from both sides of its cheek. The local government in one place, they are under the state. In another, the local governments are independent. So you find out that you don't even know whom to hold responsible Of what? That is why the state governments see federal government as Father Christmas. If Kano State Governor was in Abuja about 2 days ago or so, or in Kano, that President Ashwaju should please bring food to Kano people. That kind of a thing. It is not Ashwaju's problem to bring food to Kano people. Absolutely. The governor of Kano, Jigawa, other states also need to put things in place that the people of the state can grow their own food and so on. So if everybody comes to say federal government, it's not going to work. So in talking about Nigeria, yes, we need to have conversation. That conversation is necessary. But then have we exhausted the constitution we have now? We've not. We've not utilized it to the fullest. Because why the states, I mean, because of the way the constitution is, that's why the state governments can tell you that the problem of security is federal government. Yes, to some extent. But look, it is our country. You don't sit down and say, look, if armed robbers come and attack me, I'm waiting for the police. If the police don't come, nothing happens. So we also, as the people, have to agree that, look, you will not allow governor to do whatever he wants. Because when you ask governor to give you money, or when you ask member of National Assembly or State Assembly to give you money, instead of asking them what they are supposed to do to better your lives, you don't do that. And then you look at the government waiting for the government to do everything for you. So these conversations, we have to talk along the line of national responsibility. We need to have discussion that there should be a patriotic zeal, patriotic conversation to our country, loving our leaders, holding them accountable. If any leader does not, just like what my brother said, government houses, I mean, state assemblies are extension of government houses. You find out that this constitution is so expensive for us to run. So these are the kind of things that, look, if we don't make sure we do what we think is right for us, we'll continue in this quagmire. 2 days ago, or yesterday, my senior brother Adam Soshomole was blaming President Buhari for certain things. When will Nigerians stop blaming one another? When? What is the difference between Buhari and Tinubu? The same party, same government. So why should politicians come and start blaming one another? Instead of politicians to make sure, look, any government that it's not doing well, whether APC, PDP, because Nigeria is first, but you don't blame somebody for the woes of the country now. We all are to blame. Now, why are we all to blame? Because things happen, and so many things happened under Buhari, and nobody said anything. So now, Tinubu is there, things are happening, nobody is saying anything. So when Tinubu leaves, they will say, well, it's the problem of Tinubu. No, the problem is us, we Nigerians. I agree completely with Dr. Abayemi. We need to have conversation in this country. Whether do we even want to be one Nigeria or not? Because as of today, honestly, this conversation is necessary so that there are some states that are probably appendages in this country.
But Nigeria has always had these conversations. We call them constitutional conference.
Yeah, but we've now had a serious one.
National conference.
Now, because of the problem we are in,
because of the
problem we are in, which means we must have, because look, a bag of rice today is how much? How much was it last year? And these things are reality. So the sooner we discuss these things and ensure, so we don't even say the problem is for state government or federal government. We, the people of this country, I think we are all to blame.
Elder Chuba.
Yes, thank you very much. You see, the agric or farming in Nigeria is almost grinding to a halt. That is both subsistence or mechanized farming. Most people have abandoned their farms. They can't go to the farm because of the security situation. Now, the federal government is in charge of security. But I think that we should think of a new way of looking at the security issues in Nigeria. And I want to say it, that if we take a bold step and have state, local, and local government police within the next 1 year, all this banditry, kidnapping, will be reduced to the barest minimum. Now, take for instance, we have state police, we have local government police. We have 774 local government. Let today a recruitment of 200 people, 300 young men into security in the local government of a place, of any local government. And this local government, they are armed. If anything happens, they face it locally first. And then if it is beyond their strength, the state police comes in. If it is beyond they bring it. And there is immediately things will go down. Now, in my state, in Omala, the herdsmen have taken over about 3 communities. They are the one harvesting their farm product and bringing it to the market of the same people to buy. If there is a local government security arrangement before today, will that happen? It will be difficult, because nobody that will have gone will sit back to watch his land taken away. No community will do that. But because these people are armed and they are not armed, they cannot face them. And if this militia knows that every community now is armed, where would they go and fight? They will not. So our leaders knows what is going on, and something has to be done. Closely related to that is the fact that most of these governors, they have taken loan from CBN and other agricultural bodies in the country. What have they done with it? How many states has farm? How many states have silos where they keep grains and other things? There's nothing like that. The money is borrowed and stolen. And nobody asks questions. If you dare talk, you become a subject of attack and death. If you are a member of the state assembly and you say, oh, you borrowed so amount, well, what have you done with it? You are suspended from that assembly. You are expelled finally from that assembly. Somebody elected by his people. Somebody who is supposed to act as a watchdog of the society. You are sent away from the state assembly. If you come there, the tongue of the governor will beat you to death. A complete abuse of the Constitution. And nothing happens to that governor. He swings around. So these are the things that are happening that is making living in Nigeria extremely difficult. The rise in prices, the devaluation of the naira is not an overnight thing. It's a thing that has started, taking place for a long time. It has built up to the level now where everybody knows. Even the local woman in the village knows that there's trouble in this country now. There's food crisis, there's security crisis, there's unemployment crisis. Hunger and starvation is facing Nigeria. And this is where we are. So the federal government should call for a conversation where we will now split security into local governments, state, and at the federal. Let us recruit our youths into this system to face these bandits so that we can have our peace. Because if these bandits do not leave these agrarian places where they are occupying or where they are doing their mining, then there's no way that things can get better. The barns, the silos will continue to get empty. And in no time, criminality will increase along the line.
If I might just ask this, what inputs, speaking of security now, do you think that the states can bring in? Everyone is aware that state governments, often have what they call security votes. What is it deployed to, and how can they come in the fight against insecurity? If we agree that it's a federal government thing, but what role can states play in that?
Yes, state can play a lot of role. In the first place, when we talk about security votes, can you tell me how much is the security vote of the governor of Lagos?
He was a deputy governor, so probably.
Can you tell me what is the security vote of the governor of Benue? It's a thing that most governors discretionally allocate to themselves.
Well,
this
like
is a
Honorable
fact.
Farouk said, you would be in a position to tell us.
Governors discretionally allocate to themselves. This is my security vote. And then it becomes his security vote. Maybe as approved for himself. There is no standard. There's no standard. And so maybe he takes $1 billion naira, then he gives 2 million to his deputy. And that is all.
And what's it deployed to?
So
what are those funds deployed to?
Now, these security votes are squandered by the governors. So if we now have...
And their deputies.
Yes, and their deputies, you can say so. But most times the deputies do not know at all. So if the state has police and state assembly now vote this, governor's security vote should be, be a thing that is legislated upon and given, and not just anyhow spending. Now, if these monies are deployed, take for instance, the cost of an AK-47, I do not know what it is. Let's say, for instance, it's 500,000 or $1 million naira. And in each local government, we have at least 50 to 100 of it. Which bandit will come and live in that local government and survive? And how much does this cost? So all the money that is being stolen, if it's directed to this project, I tell you, 1 year, this security problem will go under. And this security problem continues to grow because some are benefiting from it. The more the trouble grows, the more their pocket swells. So, but if we distribute it down and there is a flow to the local councils, I'm telling you, after 1 year, there will be peace. And the people will be able to go to farm. We will now begin to have enough food available in the market, which will force the prices down. But for now, most people can't go to farm, and that is where the problem is.
All right, Prof, let's link this up with the question of education, economic development. And you spoke about human resources development, manpower development. A lot of times, Nigerians would say, perhaps the states do not have the required, some of the states which do not invest in development activities do not have the required human capital to do so. But again, we would want you to speak more to relating human capital development and general economic development and the well-being, and why the states cannot on their own surpass even the efforts of a federal government.
Yeah, in ECOWAS, where I work for many years, we believe in what they call subsidiarity principle. And subsidiarity principle is any level of government should keep away from something that lower levels of government can do. So if local governments can handle primary schools and others, they leave it to them. If state governments can handle agriculture and that MSME related, because they're so close to them, leave it to them. So if federal government can do so, and then regional governments like ECOWAS will keep away from what national governments can do. So that's subsidiarity principle. There could be areas of overlap, but the main thrust is let them do what they are able to manage. It's like risk management. You allocate risk, you identify the risk, you allocate the risk, do risk allocation table, and allocate risk to the level that can best handle it. Now, insecurity is so paramount because you can't have development with insecurity. And if you look at since after the World War, from 1945 to today, 70-something years, the world has had peace because of deterrent and mutual assured destruction. You have it, I have it. You try, you will not be safe. You can try fighting me, but you won't be safe. You go to America, if till thy kingdom come, America is not prepared to lay their arms down. Everybody has it. So if you come knocking at somebody's door, he might shoot you down before the door opens. So if we know that security is so crucial to our economic development, let's have a state of emergency on security and say for the next 2 years, let's allow those who can bear arms to bear arms. And you see this is a criminal enterprise. Yes. And it will continue to expand as long as people are benefiting from that enterprise. But when you empower all levels, then we all carry gun and we'll see how it goes over a period of time. If you say 1-2 years, because it's an emergency situation, you know, state of emergency doesn't last forever. Declare state of emergency for 2 years, and let vigilante carry some form of gun, and let the state government have some form of force. After all, in America, you have federal force, federal police, you have states, you have sheriffs, you have all that, they're coexisting. But the thing is that once you talk about state police, politicians will scream because they think that that governor will use it to stop all of them. But they forget that the bigger picture is that nothing can happen. People can't go to farm. According to Africa Union, 80% of the basic food that we grow are grown by women. 80% of the processing of common things like gari and are done by women. And if you go to the rural market, 80% of the marketing of those rural food are done by women. They can't go to farm. They can't even go and plant and can't go and harvest. And the whole stage, you see them in camp, IDP camp. We can't go on like this as a country. And if you look at inflation, you can say anything you want to say about inflation. If you look at the 5 components of inflation, food sub-basket index cruises at 35%, always giving 5% gap to composite inflation. And there are a lot of hostages to that height where it is cruising. Because there are 100 million francophone countries surrounding Nigeria, from Cameroon, Chad, Mali, all of them surrounding us, that are actually buying our food. It's so cheap for them to get this food, because when you look at our currency and look at theirs, 7 years ago, 1 naira will buy 3 francs CFA. Today, it can't buy 1, it buys 0.7. So from their perspective, naira is 80% devalued, so cheap. So they don't need to go to farm anymore. Just buy the things from across the border. And the funny thing is that because of the ECOWAS treaty, you can't demand them to pay you in dollar. So they're using naira to settle naira. I don't even know how much of that naira is a fake naira. But what is going on the borders? But we don't know. Niger and Mali and the Burkina Faso say they are leaving ECOWAS. I don't know whether that will mean some border controls around there. I don't know. But that's not the prayer. Because after all, you have Africa Continental Free Trade. So they will still come back to the back door to do the business. But it's very dangerous. But I tell you the background to this. An international division of labor places Nigeria and African countries as producers of raw materials, whether it is solid mineral or crude or agricultural products. And the division of labor says, send this up to us, we'll process them and bring it down to you to consume. That is why when economic partnership agreement was offered to us by Europe, they were wanting to get 80% of our import, which means they were not even expecting us to trade with Africans or trade with China or trade with America. So, but when your economy is import dependent, which is the consequence of that, I can tell you, just forget it. When we are ready, we will do the business. We are not going to get out of this because every conceivable global headwind will affect you. It doesn't have to be financial. It doesn't. If you have shortage of crude or high the rise price or shortage, it will affect you. If you have COVID, it will affect you. If you have mortgage prime crisis in America in 2008, it will affect you. If you have Russia, palaver. After all, Russia has oil, we have oil. They have gas, we have gas. But why are we, our knees on the ground? Because they control 40% of the gas to Europe. Europe is now at very high cost, and we are importing from Europe. Come on. We have to be proud of whatever we produce, patronize what we produce, and then eat what we produce. so that we'll have a chance of adding value and then controlling our destiny. It's going to be a very tough time ahead.
Tough time indeed, because...
Well, we'll return to these issues in just a moment, and particularly the question of human capital development. We'll do that, but first, let's take this short break, and when we return, the conversation will continue. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. We're still looking at the responsibilities of the sub-nationals in national development. And just before the break, we were with Professor Ken Ife. We still have the matter of human capital development. But just before then, let me quickly remind you that in this segment, the phone lines will be open shortly. The numbers to call will be on your screen. You can take advantage of those and call in. And as we do every Tuesday, we remind you that if you're calling in and your call gets through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. This is so to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to go straight to the point, keep it short and simple, and not to worry too much about the greetings. Just restrict it to a simple hello. That would do. Thank you, and keep those calls coming through. And let's return briefly to you, Professor Ken Ife. Yeah. The question of human capital.
Yes. Let's look at health. And I mean, it's an open secret how much billions of dollars we spend on health tourism. And the consequence, I mean, people have already mentioned many, many years ago, the Saudi family were coming here for hospital treatments and many others. And now we are the ones going out, and it's all to do with the quality of our health service. Then there's the educational side. If you think it's not good to go abroad, you call it Japan, whatever you call them, why do you not worry about the $26 billion that are repatriated here by diaspora? So there is value in whatever they are bringing in here from their education. Right. But the fact of the matter is that we don't have an education system that actually talks to the labor requirement, the labor force requirement of the current employers. So we have a mismatch there, that what we churn out from school are not relevant to what the employers need, and we would actually not doing even work-based learning, where the employers take part in the educational curriculum, and which in some cases could even be apprenticeship schemes and all kinds of things. So in that way, we begin to orient our population to the kind of jobs, opportunities that are currently available in the country. But there are also the capability, because of technological development, that you can train, example, in digital literacy, and then you are able to offer your services from here to overseas countries and still earn money. And you have outsourcing. Okay. India is doing very well on that. Right. So there are skill sets that will allow us to earn dollars while we are in Nigeria.
Right, but the question here is, these initiatives and policies, must they be the exclusive preserve of the federal government?
Oh no. Look, how many universities we have? We have, I think, about 300 universities now. we have more private university than state governments. We have more private university than federal government. And then if you come to secondary education and primary education, for goodness sake, the situation would have been worse if the voluntary sector are not taking part in provision of education. The churches, the voluntary organizations that have so many, there's no way state government or federal government put together can deal with the educational need of our, and they can't even deliver the quality.
Okay.
Look at Covenant University. Look at some of the best universities now. They're private universities.
Okay, the lines are open. We have our first caller tonight, Umar Nladi, calling in from Borno. Hello. Oh, well, okay. We can't have Umar now. I think we lost that call, but we have another caller, Mohammed from Kaduna. Mohammed, hello. Mohammed from Kaduna, hello. Okay. If we can't get that call through, we'll just have to move on. And let's go over to Lagos Center, where Dr. Tunji Abayomi is. And Dr. Abayomi, well, you've seen the trend of the discussion. You followed the trend of the discussion here. And again, the question is, in all of these initiatives that the gentlemen here have spoken about and the policies as how they affect development generally, what roles are expected of the states? And must it all be down to the center?
Naturally, it couldn't be just all for the center. We have a federal system of government which gives a lot of power and authority to the states, but that is complicated by what my colleague mentioned, and this is with regard to the allocation of items. I think not less than 68 items are committed to federal government. All of this enforced by the military constitution that we have. What I'm in essence saying is that the constitution has given states possibility for irresponsible behavior in terms of their duty to the peoples. Because as it is now, they give excuses, unwarranted excuses, in terms of development responsibility. If you look at the issues that build a nation, you talk of food security, agriculture, that's with the federal government largely. You talk of the legal sector, government sector, commercial sector such as banking and etc., social sector, health, education. These are all matters that, some part of it is given to the state, but the problem is they don't have full authority. So, in my view, the problem of our nation, I don't want us to look at, because NTA is doing a very important job, and it cannot do more. And we are grateful to NTA in the sense that, again, and especially on this Tuesday Night Live, you develop serious conversations in order that this nation may have a new lease of life. I mean, a nation where our best citizens, the youth, Plato said the time for best effort is when we are young. You're generating conversation to build a nation where our young people will use their talent, their energy, their capacity to build their nation instead of running out of the nation. Yes, we are grateful. But with due respect, I'm perplexed that in spite of all your effort and the effort of my colleagues, the elite, who are facing this challenge of this nation with, sadness, that we have a National Assembly and the states of assemblies who are pretending as if everything is all right. The truth is, whether you're talking of the states, the governments of the states, the several states, the assemblies of the states, the truth is, things are not all right in Nigeria. When you have a nation that cannot feed its own citizens, when citizens are hungry in a nation, the people cannot pretend as if, the leaders cannot pretend as if they are deaf. That's the truth. So, the states and the federal government need to come, emergency conversation on how to redeem Nigeria. Nigeria is in trouble, and we need to do something urgently about it. Look, this nation has greatness, hope, possibility, and it's still there, inchoate. But it has to be brought up. It has to be dug up. It has to be brought up. That's what the duty of the state governments and the duty of the governments of the several states, the duty of the federal government and the duty of, that's why they are elected to labor for the people, not for themselves.
Back to the phones now. We have Emmanuel who's calling in from Zaria. Hello. Hello, Emmanuel from Zaria. Are you there?
Good evening, Christopher.
Good evening.
And the guests around you. I'm one of your fans. I have been watching your program for the past 10 years. And intelligent people come on your show. They talk so well, give beautiful advice to the government, and nothing is still working. Look at the cream of people around you there now. Look at the way that prof is talking. Look at the way the man in Lagos is talking. Look at the way that deputy governor is talking. These are beautiful ideas that can make this country go forward. But nobody is taking to the advice. Next week, Tuesday, I will still be watching you. You come with some beautiful ideas. We keep talking and talking. When are we going to implement all these advice, suggestions that they are giving to this country or the government? That's my contribution, because I'm interested in everything that they are saying, and it is the solution to our problem. I'm in Zaria, so I'm close to some of these things that are happening. So please, since Soba is in your hands, look for a way to pass it across so that we can be free from our problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emmanuel from Zaria. Well, back to the studios. Honorable Farouk Aliyu Adamu. This is where the nation has found itself. And as the various administrations strive to find a way out of the numerous challenges, again, Nigerians ask the question that why is it always that the focus is at the center? And people have said, let's have a devolution of power so that the sub-nationals will have more powers. Is this a constraint of the Constitution? Attempts have been made to amend the Constitution, but you, more than anyone else here, would tell us just how far those attempts have gone, even from your days in the National Assembly. And so what is the problem here?
Well, I guess the problem is all of us still. Yes, attempts have been made to change the Constitution or to amend, but in most cases, we, the political elite, bring selfish things into it. So you find out that the main things to be done are not done, you know. So sadly, and that's why the people now need to push, because look, we have a country, we have a system. No matter how bad this system is, that's what we have. So that's why when we even are going to talk about conversation, yes, we need to converse, but that will be outside the Constitution. We have members of National Assembly. We probably have to, from our different homes or states, start talking to our members. Then look, let there be one point agenda. Forget about all these things you're talking about. Forget about the cars you are buying for yourselves. Look, we need you to discuss this country, the security situation of the country. Whether you need to amend the Constitution to bring in the state police or the local government police, you need to do that. Because if you do not secure the country, you cannot have any meaningful development. So the non-members of National Assembly, we probably, the Nigerians, should force them. Then look, forget about all these other things. We need to secure our country. So start devolution of powers. But before you do that, the Constitution has to be amended. So if all of us agree, but if we don't, it will continue to be going in a cycle. We'll just like what Emmanuel said, you will call people on Tuesdays, we'll sit and talk and drink water and leave. The next Tuesday, other people will come and talk and leave. While the people in the country are suffering, the nation is suffering, nobody is enjoying. Back to what I said earlier. Now, in Nigeria today, we have a vehicle plant called Innocent. I was made to understand only the members of the armed forces in this country are using Innocent vehicles. Why couldn't Mr. President, from tomorrow, buy Innocent vehicle? Why don't we start from there? Why don't we start from patronizing what is made in Nigeria? Look, we have to come back to the basics. As long as we don't do that, dollar will still go to 2,000, naira will 2,500. If we don't stop all these luxuries items, if we don't love ourselves. And loving ourselves is to make sure, look, what if you go to India now, you find this keke napep, you find the Tata vehicles, that's what they use. Because that's the only thing they can do. In Nigeria today, only Innocent can produce vehicles. For goodness sake, members of the National Assembly, why are you buying Prado? Why don't you buy Innocent vehicles? So that Innocent can improve, buy more equipment, so his cars will be like any other car in the world. Why can, you know, I still come back to the sisters that buy wig. $500 million invested in buying wigs. So if nobody in Aba can produce wigs for our women, too bad. The government should ban all those items. You can't bring in anything anything that we can do, we have to make do with it. If we cannot do it, we have to start learning. But as long as the government will not put it, that's why I say leadership by example. Tinubu has a lot of role to play. Let Tinubu make sacrifice. Start patronizing Made in Nigeria. And then also talking to the governors. I don't agree with the Obasanjo way, where Obasanjo will muster and cajole or go outside the Constitution. President Tinubu, who is a politician, should try to talk to the governors. Tell them that we have responsibility. We have to lead by example. Our people need to see us leading by example. Our people need to know that, look, what stops like states, Commissioner of Finance, coming up with, you know, the state has 10 billion naira this month. We have spent this money on so items, so that the people will know what the monies are used for. Then we can start asking questions. But if also the citizens also hail thieves, you are a government official or a member of National Assembly or State Assembly, you had a bicycle before, now you have retinue of cars, retinue of houses, and nobody asks questions, and so on. And you still blame the elites. So that's why I say all of us are to blame. If the people cannot start holding us, the elites, accountable, where did you get this? Or why? And so on and so forth. And if probably the agencies like EFCC, ICPC, go after us, the elites, or people that seem to have taken the resources, to bring the money back. Stop even prosecution. If they don't bring the money, then you prosecute them. I am sure there are enough resources, you know, among politicians, in the hands of former ministers, former governors, former this, former that can manage the affairs of this country. So we have to start. You see, in other countries, when people steal money, they put the money in the country. You see it. through either farming, industries, and so on. In Thailand, we've seen that. But in Nigeria, our elites are so wicked. You steal the money, you take the money abroad, you don't use it, and nobody uses it. So look, we need to start asking ourselves. The masses need to start asking questions, so that if you see any man coming with money into your, you can collect, but then ask him. Okay. Prick the conscience of the elites of this country.
All right. Let's get back to the phones. We have Ada calling in from Jos. Hello. Hello, Ada from Jos. Are you still with us?
Yes, hello, Ada.
All right, go ahead,
Calling
please.
from Jos Plateau State.
Go ahead.
Your guests have said it all, you know. I don't know, the problem we have is that we're not ready to even do the right thing, especially the National Assembly. Well, the last time I checked, 8.4 million Nigerians living in extreme poverty. That is from Ministry of Agriculture. Now, the latest one I checked was court orders FG to fix prices of food within 7 days. It's laughable for a court in Nigeria to order FG to fix prices. This is a tall order. Court should rather order FG to fix the fundamentals that has caused food insecurity, which your guests have discussed in details there. You know, they should have, that is the issue. And the major one is this idea of not decentralizing the police. Let us decentralize the police. Let us have a state police, so that the state governors will be chief security officers and not chief logistics officers. That's what they are now. Most times are local. Until we have security getting right to the local government areas, we're not going to achieve anything. We'll just be bitch about the butchery. This insecurity that is leading to food insecurity. Because farmers cannot go to the farm, as your guests have mentioned there. Then, if it's possible to have a ban open grazing and then, you know, take money, you know, have ranches and let the people, those in that field, ranch their cattle and then they pay tax to the center. Now we have to, because most times some of the crops are even destroyed by cattle. And you know, all these are problems, these are fundamental problems. We don't want to, patronize what we use. The last time when the National Assembly invited the CDS governor, he told them to the face that we spent over 40 billion in the last 10 years on medical tourism and educational tourism. Who are the people? Is it me? It's not the poor masses. It's them, the people there. So they don't want to do the right thing. So if they don't want to do the right thing, the way we are going, it will just collapse over our head. Look at them, even the Dangote refinery. He cannot get enough food. He has to source crude now in the international market. Isn't that ridiculous? Because of oil theft. Who are the people stealing the oil? He's stealing them. You know, so what the hell are we going? So everybody is a hungry man. I don't have respect for law, authority, or even humanity. That's what is going on now. So if they think they are safe, they are not safe with those vehicles they bought. The members of the National Assembly, a word is enough for the wife. Let's not go for Nigeria.
All right. Thank you very much, Ada from Jos. Well, again, we come back to the studio and put this across and say, how can the states now begin to make an impact in all these efforts that we've talked about here? Especially with the area of IGR. A lot of Nigerians have spoken out against the system where periodically, every month, everyone gathers in Abuja to share. And everything stops while the sharing is going on. Even when the sharing is delayed, it's as if life comes to a standstill in every part. All right.
Thank you very much. I would like to talk about the human capital development first before responding to this question. You see, I will advocate a total change of our curriculum from primary school to the university. Now, our current curriculum cannot produce graduates that can compete in international labor market. I, as an individual, I can say that there are things I learned that it's only now that the reality of what I studied then, I can behold it. Because it is practically theoretical. You are talking of an export to somebody who doesn't even know what it is. So people grow up learning, criming, and giving back to the teacher. And so when you give them responsibility related to their studies, they can't. And so most mechanical engineers from Nigeria, can they repair vehicle? No. So there is a need for a total change. Now, for the states and the IGR issue, it's not the lack of devolution of power that has led to the poor performance of most governors. It's not.
Okay.
Because there's nothing in our law stopping states from doing business.
Okay, we'll ask you to just pause a while. We'll return to it. Okay. We'll keep that point and we'll return. But let's just quickly take this call from Birnin Kebi. Umar Anache calling in. I suppose a regular caller on this program. Hello, Umar. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
And the discussion there, they did a very wonderful job. And to my own mind, to me, as my own opinion, it all depends on the people. The people were the ones that are to be governed. The way they should be governed with the timing, the behavior of the governors. Generally, the people fail to ask the right question at the right time. And this is what gives governors a kind of power to think that, yes, they are the small gods. If people ask him the right question, he will not behave the same way that he is going to behave. Let me give you an instance. For example, now as it is, to transfer the governor of my state to Lagos State, to govern Lagos State, he will not behave the same way that he will behave if he is to govern Kebbi State. That is to tell you that people of Lagos State ask him the right questions, while people from Kebbi State did not ask him the right questions. So it is obvious that the people of Kebbi State and the governor of Kebbi State behave in the same way he is behaving because of the people of Kebbi State behave in the same way they are behaving. Rightly, let me tell you an example, Ciro. There is time that the governor of Kebbi State, His Excellency, previous governor of Kebbi State, His Excellency Atiku Bagudu, he participated in one of the programs, Anko Borowa program, for example. I called and pinned the governor and said that, look, this is not the right way to go about Anko Borowa program. I'm the only one that called from Kebbi State and say that. Has it been that there are many people that call and tell governor what I told him, he will not behave the same way that he is behaving. May God continue to bless our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, we'll come back to you. You, just before we took that call, you were making the point that there's nothing that stops the states from doing business.
Yes. Today, every state has the right to do business. If you have an oil well in your state, the state can register a company,
investment can,
and apply, get the oil well and then prospect.
Yeah, but in all of this, perhaps when we come to Professor Kenny Fiutel, but in all of this, you tell us all the time that governments have no business in business.
No, I'm coming. You know, like when I was deputy governor, I was in charge of PPP.
I'm chairman of PPP in Enugu State.
So, then in PPP,
TCPC.
You can look for an investor, partner with the investor, provide set land, security, and some percentage of the money required. And the man manages it, and the income comes to the state government, and you can, a state that has maybe 39 minerals, like Kogi, and if you go into partnership, and you are doing business, and with these 39 people, Kogi people who need to come to the federal government to look for allocation. It is because most governors don't want to lay the foundation for tomorrow. Even where foundations were laid before they came, they destroyed it. So where is the tomorrow? So governors can states can go into business and sustain themselves, not with much money, but just the vision. Okay. The vision, the political will to turn situation around. That's all that is required.
All right. We have another caller. This is also Umar, but this Umar is from Kano. Hello.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, go ahead. Hello.
Ideas.
Yes, are you with us? Go ahead. You're on.
So, yeah, I've been speaking. So, like I said, Nigeria is not bred to ideas. We have ideas. We have wonderful people that come up with the ideas. But unfortunately, the right people who will implement those decisions are not in the right place. Over the last years that we have had democracy, how many governors have we had? Out of these governors, you can hardly find 5 to 10% of them that have no cases against them. And most of them are either in the National Assembly or in corridors of power. And those are the people that we expect to implement the decisions that most of our elites come up with. It's not going to work. Like Honorable Farooq Ali said, it's our responsibility, and unfortunately, we don't come together and make sure that people in position of leadership are held to account. We don't do that. And so long as we don't do that, we keep electing. If they force themselves into those positions, we allow them to stay there. There is no way we can get this country out of the situation we're in now. I'm not trying to defend this government, but I know for sure that whatever this government is trying to do is a damage control. Is trying to right the wrongs that happened over the last couple of years. And there's no magic wand. There's no magic wand. We have to hold everybody, especially the state government, because when I look at people always talking about the federal government, I ask them, I say, why do you concentrate on the federal government? What do you want the federal government to do? At the state level, at the local government level? I mean, we are just not serious. I think we really have to sit off, and if we want this country to work, all of us, like Honorable Farooq Ali said, all of us must be responsible and must hold people responsible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, Prof.
Yeah, I just want to make a suggestion. Let us cut this chase about state police or no state police. Simply declare state of emergency on security for 1 year. Just 1 year as an experiment. Now, we have 10,000 wards in the country. Let us employ 20 young people in each ward. That's 200,000 people. They will give us a more effective coverage of the wards. And then if the governors are buying cars for police and all that they are buying for them, if they can't afford to buy pump action for these people, let us raise money for a security fund. We'll contribute to buy pump action, and they will be ready. They should be domiciled with the police, and they will go and have serial number. And these people, 20, will go and collect them from the police, so that after 1 year, you collect them back after trying this experiment. And then if you need to suspend a section of the law in that gives you that coverage, fine. You don't have to create the state police today. Let's do 1 year experiment. And they tell me if this thing will persist after 1 year. Because of the balance of force.
Yes.
And then if you have 20 people carrying pump action in a ward, the kidnappers will think twice. Because by the time they kill 3, one of them will go down. You know? This thing is not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's just balance of force.
Dr. Abayomi, how may the states, the subnationals, and the local governments begin to put in just a little bit extra above the average that have always been assigned to them to grow these ideals that we've talked about here tonight?
I also think part of their responsibility is to come up with ideas to resolve the problems and the challenges of Nigeria. I mean, in my view, it doesn't stand to reason that all they do is to come to Abuja to collect money, which they misuse and mismanage, which they turn to security votes to protect themselves instead of protecting the people. They should also come with ideas and that will help this nation. That's why they are elected. But I want to also talk about the issue of state police. It's only one of the issues that our nation faces. Of all the federal systems of government, all the countries that have federal systems of government, I think it's only Nigeria that has only one single structure, police structure, as far as I know. Only Nigeria has only one single police structure controlling security throughout the nation. And Nigeria is a very large nation. I live in a rural part of Ondo State, deep in Akoko, and the command for security will be from Abuja. Apart from that, for God's sake, how do I expect somebody that is coming from Lokoja, that is a police in Okeagbe, my hometown, to go into the bush, to take a risk in the bush to protect the people against marauders? It's not going to work. But if my people are there, and he knows that these are my people, obviously it will make a difference. So it's just a matter of common thinking that there is a need to have multiple security challenge, including security that is resident within the community. In any case, we have a situation now where virtually every state, Zamfara just established a sort of a security structure. Many other states are doing it. So do the federal government or the National Assembly want them to do it illegally or unconstitutionally? At the end of it all, every state will attempt to protect its citizens in one way or the other. The issue, however, is that if you want security, in my view, you should allow the people to protect. You cannot say a governor is the chief security, is like a prophet without without a prophecy, so to say. You cannot call them chief security without equipment to secure the people. The point I'm making is that the structure that we have now makes the state governments, and the state political leaders irresponsible. Therefore, like my colleague said, we need to have a conversation about Nigeria. What do we want Nigeria to be? A great nation, a nation that has such great possibility is collapsing. And it is not just sufficient for the National Assembly to preoccupy itself with buying cars or protecting itself or giving itself allowance during holidays. They are elected to find solutions to the problem of Nigeria, and they need to do that.
All right, Dr. Mayowa, thank you so much. And we are in the closing minutes of this program now. And so let's start with you, Honorable Farouk Aliwadam. And yes, we spent time identifying the issues here, what needs to be done. In the interim, as they always say, there's the first few steps you must take towards achieving anything before you look at the medium term and the long term. What must the country and its various administrative levels, from the federal, the center, to the sub-nationals, and then right down to the local, what must we begin to do now to work towards turning the situation around?
We come back to oath of office and oath of allegiance. If all elected persons will abide by their oath of office and oath of allegiance, probably will be good. When you swear, you know, with either Bible or Quran to protect and defend the Constitution as presently constituted, if each and every one of those in authority who hold this power in trust on our behalf, if they will do the needful, if they will have empathy in such that let Mr. President know, let him know that, look, somewhere in Kebbi or in Bayelsa, someone has not eaten today because of policies of either federal or state, you know, that's why things are so difficult. But then Umar from Kano said he's not speaking, he will not speak for the government. I will speak for the government. Now, I want the Nigerian public to know that President Ashwaju Tinubu removed subsidy, but he didn't do it alone. He didn't do it alone. The people need to know that the governors of the states, all of them, without exception, agreed that subsidy must go. So if today the governors of Nigeria, who are members of the National Economic Council, go to Mr. President that, look, you must take back subsidy to the people, that will be done. So let the people know. Now I'm speaking for Tinubu, that Tinubu did not withdraw the subsidy on his own. The governors made sure he did. So now, which means, first things first, do we, as people of this country, think subsidy removal is good or bad? The governors are certainly smiling to the banks. They are enjoying it. They have 45% more in revenue. But whether it is showing, you know, it's on the ground, that's another thing. So first things first. Now, subsidy, which is the main topic, everybody is saying subsidy, subsidy. Okay, Tinubu didn't remove subsidy. He, as the head of the government, actualized it. Now, if Nigerians want subsidy to come back, talk to your governors. Let them come back to the Economic Council and tell Mr. President, look, subsidy has to be back. So Tinubu did not remove subsidy.
All right, Elder Simon Achuba.
Yes, my closing remark will be a general call for repentance within the leadership, political leadership of Nigeria. We have all been so corrupted. Our mindsets for seeking political office is to get there and enrich ourselves to the disadvantage of the populace. So I think that call for repentance, the president, the vice president, the governors, their deputies, the National Assembly, and all political office holders should please have mercy on Nigerians. Think twice and do that which is right. And that can be done when the president starts to take certain steps. You may have been called whatever name before, but your action today can make people have a change of mind. Because to be a president of a nation like Nigeria is not just to be president so that your name will be there for lifetime. No. Because we have problems facing us now. If certain steps are not taken to console the anger of Nigerians the way we are with all the hunger that is underway, I pray that we do not degenerate into a circumstance where everything will go out of control. God forbid. We are at the verge of a fall. And the president should get up and sit up and do that which is right to save the nation. Everything stops on his table as the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Whether decisions were taken rightly or not, it is his body. And so let him stand up, take a stand, and be an example in leadership. Okay. Now, this is one of it. Electoral reforms. You see, there is not a nation that throws up rogues to the corridor of power and expect a change. When on the seat, the man that is seated there is a rogue. No. But if the electoral process is cleaned up and we have men who have the law for the nation at the corridor of power, these things we are talking will be resolved within a time. But how can you resolve an issue when you have rogues occupying all the places? When you bring ideas that are brilliant, that can move the nation forward, when the money comes, they pocket it. And they go free with it. Nothing happens to them. You take them to court, you stay with them in court for 20 years while they enjoy the loot that they have made. These things have to stop. And that is why I'm calling for repentance and for the president to stand up and carry on with a good political will to bring about a change in Nigeria. Thank you.
Professor Kenny, if, as Elder Simon Achuba says, the buck stops on the president's table, what is the role of those who also constitute the leadership at the states and the local governments? What should they do to complement that role, and how should they key into actualizing those good ideas that he says should generate from the center?
It takes two to tango. I think they have to work together because because economic development is on the concurrent list. If you issue license to somebody to come and mine, the government won't let them mine until they satisfy the environmental considerations and this and that. Otherwise, you can carry your license into the mine it, but they won't let you drive out with the thing. So they are both connected. Do you understand? One owns the things under the land, one owns the things up on top of the land. So how are you going to work with that? They have to work together without a doubt. But both of their action should be targeted on enabling the private sector to perform, to work with them. Because you cannot be expecting private sector to bring 85% of the funding for development and you are clinging to 15%. And then you want them to do what? You don't want to provide a secure environment for them to operate. And then you don't give them that enabling. They're not saying emasculate the work. No, let them work with you because they can bring speed, expertise, all kinds of things to make these things realizable very, very quickly. You've got to provide them with an enabling environment. You have to provide security that they are prepared to even pay for and contribute to. I think we have our job cut out for us. We just have to work together. And every level of government has clear roles to play. And we know that federal, yes, has a strategic role for strategic direction, a lot of externalities. But when you come to domestic economy, you cannot walk away without the state playing a very, very significant role. For the start, they muzzled the local government. So you have to untangle. But we will get there. We will get there. we have to continuously look at value addition, because when you solve the insecurity problem, the next thing is what you are producing, how do you add value to it so that you are in control of your destiny. At the moment, we are not. We are not. And the experiences of the Francophone countries tell us that, you know, there is cause to worry, because for them, it got up to here, that they are now, you know, blowing hot air and coup after coup and all that. They won't come to that. But the signature is on the wall.
Right. Dr. Bayomi, if you cannot influence what's happening at the center, how well can you do with those things that are under your control at the subnational level? And that's been the whole essence of this discussion from the start of this program. How well are those in charge at the subnational levels doing? If they say there's so much, and as in your own words you say, to whom much is given, much is expected. Well, at the level of the subnationals, much is also given to the leadership. So the people there can also expect much of them.
The people who've spoken so much about the leaders in our country, we need to also have very serious conversation amongst ourselves as the peoples of Nigeria. Because many times the neurosis forced on ourselves by our inaction or wrong action is also the source of the problems of Nigeria. If we cannot vote unless you are given some stupid money, you will not get appropriate leadership, for sure. You cannot expect to sow a corn and expect to reap a groundnut. You will only reap what you sow. So, as we are talking about the leadership, the people themselves must be conscious of their responsibility to produce the ideals of government over themselves. The second point I want to make is that now today we are talking of depreciation of currency. If we realize that 500, not less than 500 industries have died in this nation in the last 30 years, not less than 500 major industries, what do we expect? These industries died because of policy and because of corruption, mainly corruption. When industries are coming into our nation and the leaders, our government are demanding money, or they are delaying it because they want to be paid, etc., and so on and so forth, or they are asking for money as conditions to put people, right people in position, our nation cannot grow. The other issue is that we cannot have a situation where government is living very well, comfortably, and laughing when the people are weeping. 60% of the expenditure in managing government should be taken away and be used for the people. In this nation today, a whole lot of our wealth is committed to managing government. Government that is supposed to work for us is working for itself with our money. If you have a situation where, for example, a governor takes almost $1 million per month for the purposes of security and is using it to building houses all over the place, and there's no control, where do we go? How is the nation going to, where are you going to have the money to build roads or develop health or improve in education or curriculum, as my colleague has said? So the people need to wake up to hold government responsible. So these are the issues that I believe confront our nation.
Right, thank you very much, and that's where we must leave it. And Dr. Tunji Abayomi, constitutional lawyer, thanks so much for joining us from our Lagos Network Center. Thank you for being part of this program. Thank you. All right, back here, let's also say a very big thank you to Honorable Farouk Aliyu at Abuja. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
And then to Elder Simon Achuba, former Deputy Governor of Kogi State and former Deputy Speaker of the Kogi State House of Assembly, thank you for being here. Thank you. Professor Ken Ife, it's always a delight to have you join us on these conversations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you too for being part of tonight's program. Next week we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Bye for now.
"24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.